Good day to everyone. Myself Sivasankari from the Department of Software Applications, Tiruthangal Nodar College. Today we are going to learn about open source technology. First we will see about the objective of the course. The objective of the course is to understand the role and features of open source software and also the impact of legal, social and economic issues for such software. The outcome of the course is to know the benefits and features of open source technology and also to interpret, contrast and compare open source products among themselves. First we will see what is open source. Basically we are working on different kinds of software in different categories. Like operating system means Windows XP, Windows 7, etc. Office suites means MS Office, Lotus and many other software games. These are all the proprietary software. These are all the intellectual property of the organization or the intellectual property of the owner. Here you cannot able to change the features of the code, but in open source software the source code is freely available in it. You can able to change the features of the software. Such kind of software you can call it as open source software. So the definition of open source software is open source refers to any program whose source code is made available for use, modification and distribution with its original rights. Next we will see about what is a free software. Free software means very little cost or no cost. That means the name itself states that free means freedom. So the software that respects the user's freedom. The user have the following freedom that every free software contains, like run, copy, distribute, study, change and improve the software. Free software are also known as software liber or open source, free liberal open source software. So it provides all types of freedom because the source code is available in it. Every free software should contain the following freedoms. Freedom number 1, run the program for any purpose. Freedom number 2, study and change the program as per your requirements. Freedom number 3, redistribute the copies to others. Freedom number 4, improve the program and release the new version of the software. These are all the 4 freedoms that every free software contains. Next we will see the history of free software and then open source software. In 1983, open source software was launched. The term free software is replaced by open source software. Richard Matthew Stallman is the Free Software Foundation founder. He is also known as the father of the open source movement. Nowadays we are using some of the creation of the programs like Android operating system, WordPress, browser means Mozilla Firefox and many others. Properties of open source software. The characteristics of open source software are security, number 2, affordability, number 3, transparency, number 4, localization is possible. That is, the translation and adaptation of the software is possible in open source software. Number 5, interoperability on multiple platforms, that is the ability to work in multiple platforms. Number 5, flexible due to customization. Next we will see the difference between open source and then closed source software. In open source software the source code is freely available in it, so you can able to change the features of the source code because you are already licensed to do that. So, but in closed source software, you cannot able to see the source code. That is, it is hidden. you cannot able to view the source code, at the same time you cannot able to change the source code. That is the difference between open source and then closed source software. Some examples for open source and then closed source software. Open source means Mozilla Firefox, Google Chrome, Internet Explorer, OpenOffice, VLC Media Player. Example for closed source, Apple software, McAfee, antivirus, etc. Next, we will see the advantages of open source software. First one, you cannot able to depend on the software vendors. Next one, higher level of security is available in open source software. Number 3, flexible due to customization. Number 4, cost saving, because the application is totally available at free of cost. Number 5, you can able to change the source code according to your needs. At the same time, there are some disadvantages in open source software. First one, the incompatibility issue due to the hardware and software. Second one, some open source software may die because the programmers just lose their interest. Number 3, lack of support issues. Number 4, lack of time to learn the software. Number 5, there is no guarantee that the development will happen. Number 6, sometimes it is difficult to know the current status of the project. So these are all the disadvantages of open source software. Next one is open source principles. Every open source software should follow the principles. Principle number 1, licenses are free to use open source software for any purpose. Principle number 2, licenses are free to make copies of open source software and distribute them without any payment to the licensor. Principle number 3, licenses are free to create derivative works of open source software and they can distribute them without any payment, that is royalty free to the licensor. Principle number 4, licenses are free to access open source software. The principle number 5, licenses are free to combine open source and other softwares too. So these are all the principles of open source. Next we will see about the open standard requirement for software. An open standard is a standard that is freely available for adoption, implementation and then updation. Example, SQL, HTML and then XML. The open standard requirements means the open standard must satisfy the following criteria. Criteria number 1, no intentional secrets. Means the standard must define a process for fixing flaws identified during the implementation of the standard, the interoperability testing and to incorporate the changes into the software and to release under the same terms that do not violate the open standard requirement. Criteria number 2, availability. The standard must be freely available in the internet, that is, it must be in a stable internet that must be under royalty free terms at reasonable or non-discriminatory cost. Criteria number 3, patents. All patents are essential for implementation of the standard must be licensed under royalty free terms for unrestricted use or be licensed by a promise of non-assertion when practiced by a open source software. Criteria number 4, no agreements. License agreement, non-disclosure agreement, grant or paperwork that is not required for implementation of the standard. Criteria number 5, no OSR incomplete dependencies. Implementation of the standard must not require any other technology that fails to meet the criteria of the standard of these requirements. Some of the examples of open source application: Mozilla Firefox, OpenOffice, 7-Zip, VLC Media Player, Joomla Server, BAM, Blender, and then MySQL. Some of the examples of open source programming language means PHP, Python, Perl, Eclipse, and then Ruby. Some of the examples of open source operating system means Linux, Google Chrome, and then Android operating system. Some companies use open source software for the following benefits. Benefit number 1, cost saving, because the application is available totally at free of cost. Number 2, stability. Number 3, no forced upgrades. Number 4, access to skilled community of laborers. Number 5, ability to define and expedite new development. So these are all the reasons some companies use the open source software. At the same time, some companies doesn't use the open source software for the following reasons. Number 1, migration cost. Number 2, uncertainty about development of the open source model. Number 2, lack of IP warranties. Number 4, lack of security. Number 5, copyleft provisions of general public license and then lesser general public license. Next, we will see about the software engineering methodology. Software engineers are to produce high quality of software with a large number of resources and to a predicted schedule. The goal is to provide a systematic approach to software development. There are different types of models are there. First, we will see about the life cycle paradigm. In software development activity, the software development is divided into several phases like requirement analysis, architecture, design, implementation, test, deploy, and then support. The life cycle paradigm of software engineers are sometimes called as waterfall model, and it is also a sequential approach. Basically, it starts at system level and passes through analysis, coding, design, coding, testing, and then maintenance. First, we will see about the waterfall model. Waterfall model is a very good example for sequential approach. In waterfall model, the software development activity is divided into several kinds of phases. Each phase contains a series of tasks and have different objectives. In waterfall model, the phases are requirement analysis, system design, implementation, system testing, system development, and then system maintenance. Waterfall means once the water falls down, it cannot go back up. Like the same way, in waterfall model, when one phase completed only, it goes to the next phase. So once you moved to the next phase means you cannot go back to the previous phase. So this is the working methodology of the waterfall model. Next, we will see about the spiral model. Spiral is one of the most important model in software development activity because it handles risk management. In spiral model, it has many loops. It looks like spiral in shapes and many loops, right? The exact number of loops you cannot able to determine because it may vary from one project to another project. Then in spiral model, the radius of the loops determines the cost of the project. In spiral model, it is divided into 4 quadrants. First quadrant is objective determination and identify alternative solution. So in this first quadrant, the requirements are gathered from the customer, that is identified, elaborated and analyzed at the starting of the every phase. The second quadrant is identify and resolve risk. During the second quadrant, all the solutions are evaluated to find the best possible solution. So at the end of the second quadrant, design is built for the best possible solution. The third quadrant is develop the next version of the product. During this third quadrant, the identified features are developed and verified through testing process. So, at the end of this third quadrant, a new version of the software is readily available. The fourth quadrant is review and plan for the next phase. In the fourth quadrant, the customer evaluate the so far developed version of the software. In the end, they plan for the next phase. So this is the working methodology of the spiral model. Next, we will see about the philosophy of open source technology. In 1996, Eric S. Raymond took over the development of open source email software, POP client, naming it to Fetch client. So after his experience in this particular project, he wrote an essay called The Cathedral and the Bazaar. It examines the struggles between the top-down and the bottom-up design. The essay was first presented in Linux Congress on May 27, 1997 and the same was published as a book in 1999. In Cathedral model, the development process took place in a centralized way. Here the roles are clearly defined, means roles responsible for designing, roles responsible for people who are all responsible for managing the project, people who are all responsible for implementation. So traditional software engineers follows the Cathedral model, but in Bazaar model, the development took place in the internet in the view of the public. So here the roles are not clearly defined. The Bazaar model should exhibit the following patterns. First one, users should be treated as co-developers. Here users are treated as co-developers because all the users can able to access the source code. Not only they can able to access the source code, they can able to find the errors in the source code and they can give solution to resolve the bugs. Second one, early release. The first version of the software should be released as soon as possible. Then only they can able to find out the co-developers for this particular project. Third one, frequent integration. New code should be incorporated into the software as often as possible. Then only you can able to avoid large number of bugs at the end of the project. Number 4, several versions. There should be at least 2 versions. One is stable version with less features, another one is buggier version with more features. In stable version, it has only very few bugs and it has only very less features available in that particular software. But in buggier version, those who are ready to accept the challenge, that means the user who are ready to accept the challenge, because the source code is not thoroughly tested, they can act as a co-developer, they can find the bugs and they can give solution to resolve the bugs. Next one is high modularization. Software should be modular for parallel development. Next one is dynamic decision making structure. Need for decision making structure, whether formal or informal, the decision strategy depends on changing the user requirements. So most of the open source software follows the Eric Raymond model as suggested by him, like Linux, Netscape, Apache and then Perl. Next one is open source software development model. In open source software development model, it has 3 phases like initiation phase, execution phase and then release phase. In initiation phase, it has problem discovery, finding volunteers, solution identification. In execution phase, it has code development and testing, code change, review, else, code commit and documentation. Finally, you can release the software. The process usually has two choices. Either you can adapt an existing project or you can start a new project. Means, suppose if you are starting a new project means the process starts with the initiation phase followed by the execution and then the software is released. Suppose if you are adapting an existing project means the process goes directly to the execution phase and then the process will taken over here and then you can release the software. So this is the process development model for open source software development. This is the working methodology in open source software development model. Next one is license. What is a license? A license is nothing but a documentation. It has the guidelines how to use the software and for the distribution of the software. Licenses are of proprietary or free or open source. So the software license documentation contains the use of the software, limitation of the liability, warranties and then disclaimers. Under license, first we will see about the copyright. The copyright symbol looks like this C. Copyrights means users' rights. That is the rights that the creators have over their work. The copyright generally covers for books, paintings, music, drawings like technical drawings, maps, sculptures, computer programs and then database. Next one is under license we are going to see about copyleft. Copyleft means distributing software that the user can able to copy it freely, examine, modify the source code and redistribute the source code at a free of cost or at a pricing. If you are redistributing the softwares to others, you have to use the same copyleft provision. You cannot change the license. Some of the popular open source licenses are Apache, General Public License, Lesser General Public License, Berkeley Software Distribution, MIT, etc. First we will see about what is an Apache license. So it is a open source license. It was released by Apache Software Foundation and it is a very popular license. So Apache license allow you to use, modify and redistribute any Apache licensed product. Next we will see about Linux. Linux is an open source operating system. What is an operating system? It's nothing but a software. So, the operating system manages the applications and the hardware. That manages the connection between the application and the hardware to do their work. So, that is the concept of the operating system. What is the advantages of Linux? So, first one, it is a open source software. It allows you to contribute, modify and enhance the software. Next, operating system. Under operating system, Linux is less vulnerable and it is more secure than Windows operating system. Linux operating system is freely available in the internet. You can able to download and use it freely. Next, what are the features of Linux operating system? First one, it is a portable environment. Second one, free and open source operating system. Third one, graphical user interface. Fourth one, new updates should be integrated frequently. Fifth one, it is end-to-end encryption. Sixth one, it is a lightweight infrastructure. So these are all the features of Linux operating system. Next one is Wikipedia. Wikipedia is a free, open, online encyclopedia. So this is created by a community of people called Wikipedians. That's why the name become Wikipedia. So in Wikipedia, anyone can register and they can publish their article. But if you want to edit an article, it is no registration is required. You can able to edit the article directly without the registration. Next one, the ethics of open source. The ethics of open source software described from the three perspective of three key roles. Number one, commercial consumer and then redistributor. Number two, open source provider. Number three, open source contributor. The three core aspects that are required for open source model to function: respect, moral and then compliance. Respect means they must aware their expectation and their needs. Moral means the central moral motivations are understood and accepted. Compliance means all required actions are taken to enable compliance. Next, we will see about the impact of open source technology. Open source software has made a tremendous impact in the software industry because the way the software is developed and used. Open source is nothing but it is a software that allows you to modify and you can able to use it freely and you can able to redistribute. That is the main concept of the open source software. There are some examples for open source software has impacted the industry. First one, operating system for servers and cloud computing platform means the Linux operating system. Second one, popular web browsers means the Apache web browser. Third one, open source database management means database management system means MySQL and then PostgreSQL. Next one, the most popular open source programming languages means Python and the Java programming. Mobile operating system means the Android operating system and it follows the open source Linux operating system. So overall, the open source software has made a tremendous impact in the industry. The social impact of open source technology in terms of innovation, efficiency, global access and the peoples are connected together by using the open source technology. Some of the open source softwares are listed over here like Free Software Foundation, Freshmeat.net, SourceForge.net, Developer. So some of the open source software websites are available. You can able to use it. Through this video, hope you can understand and gain the knowledge of open source software and the impact of open source software. Thank you.